to Legal Talk with Robin Bond. I'm your host, Robin Bond, and we have a great show today called How AI is Rewriting the World of Work. Is your next boss going to be an algorithm? We have done another show in the past on AI. It just is what everybody is talking about. And it's amazing how quickly AI has taken over most aspects of life. Generative AI just burst into the scene only maybe 4 short years ago. And now it's just part of our everyday lives. But what happens whenever AI algorithms determine whose resumes get seen, who gets interviewed, who gets hired? Are they interjecting the biases into this process? I know it has been very frustrating for many of my friends and clients who have said, we have submitted hundreds of resumes, they're going nowhere, we don't hear from anybody. How in the world do we get hired today? So we're going to explore today how businesses and employees can use AI without getting into trouble, what happens with these AI tools, what's really going on, and try and give you some answers to maybe stem the frustration. I am delighted to welcome back my guest today, attorney Josh Waterston. Josh, welcome to the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Josh is our attorney, our go-to guy for anything to do with technology and the law. And he really knows his stuff on AI, and he advises businesses on this very topic. So Josh and I were talking today. Did you see that article in The Atlantic, Josh, about how AI has ruined the job market?
Yes, I did. And timing was great.
Could you believe the timing? I said, oh my gosh, this is absolutely perfect for the day. And I don't know that it's ruined the job market, but it sure has, changed things. What did you think about that article? I mean, I know it was really big, but if you had any initial comments about what you're seeing happen with how AI is being used, it might be entertaining for the viewers.
Certainly. First of all, it's an interesting headline. I don't agree necessarily that it's ruining the job market, but I have a 21-year-old and I remember when I had to look for my first job, I went door to door back in 1906, something like that. And I got my first job at a pizza shop. And, I talked to a human being, and the human being gave me a job. Yeah. Well, my son looked for a job and he had to apply online. And what the article is talking about is you have people applying online and they're using AI to make their applications and their resumes look better, and how our company is responding. They're using AI to review and filter the resumes. And it's come to where I think, what was the term they use? Signal collapse, where it's AI talking to AI. And now you have companies saying, maybe we should bring people back into the mixture and have someone looking the candidate in the eye and saying, what are you all about?
Yeah, I think the depersonalized process has been appalling to me over the years. It's just been like, we used to spend a lot of time, I'm sure you did too. You develop a network, right? And you have references that people can vouch for you. So the title of our program is Your Next Boss an Algorithm? And your next boss may not be an algorithm, but you are probably going to use an algorithm to fill your application out. The company is going to use an algorithm to screen you, and you may even be interviewed by an algorithm. So we've got a lot of good questions today that we can go over because, I know this. Clients are writing things up through AI. And now all of a sudden, instead of like a 1 or 2 page chronology of events, I'm getting a 16-page chronology, not only of events, but of all the potential legal claims and things. So it's really something worth looking at. And we do actually have a viewer question who somebody has written into us. So I'd like to put that up and ask you to take a look at this, Josh. Zach Keller of Philadelphia says, how is AI reshaping legal work? And what must businesses leaders know about emerging legal risks, biases, and regulations?
Well, that's a big question, but looking at it first from the employment perspective, let's say that you're a company that wants to hire someone and you use an AI tool, of which I'm sure there are many, to screen applicants and to streamline the hiring process. The problem is that if you train that AI tool on historic data, prior applications, how people did compared to the metrics that you provided, well, it may have unknown bias. And I don't mean racial or gender or age, but it's bias that may creep in because it's backward looking only. And so if you don't have someone behind the scenes looking at how the AI tool is doing, are there any unintended consequences? Then your company is at risk. And Robin, you and I were talking about a case where, um, what was it, Workday had to deal with this.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to see a whole lot more cases in the future. But the other thing too about the legal work is it's the same thing there as other entities. Everybody's using AI to generate the research or the initial product. I don't know what that says for the future for young law students getting hired as clerks or first year associates. I think there are going to be fewer of those jobs. But what you find when you get the product is, as Josh says, the historical perspective, the AI tool wants to please you. So it wants to give you something. And I have found this, that they are making up cases. They'll make up, and I always check whatever I get. I go and I check and I say, where is this case? This case, and it's not uncommon. So again, I still think AI really is in the very early stages. It will get better and it will get smarter as we go. For the state of regulation, you can read in the news, the White House does not want states to regulate AI. They want overall federal overarching regulation, yet some states are really pushing back on this. Most notably and surprisingly, the state of Florida is really pushing back. Right. The state is really doing the greatest pushback, saying no, parents should be able to see what their children access. They should, be able to control what is being seen or what the kids know, and they want to know what their kids are seeing. So I think this is all open, Zach, to the future. So stay tuned, watch what we talk about, but definitely keep watching the news for recent developments because it's proceeding at the speed here. So Josh, let me say to all the other viewers out there, here's how you can submit your questions to Money Matters TV and Legal Talk with Robin Bond.
You can have your questions answered on Money Matters. Please go to our website, money-matterstv.com. On our homepage, click on the banner on the right that says, Send us your questions. While you're on our website, you can find information about our host and guests, as well as show notes and links about this show and past shows. Money Matters is also available as a podcast on iTunes and Stitcher, so you can listen to Money Matters while you're on the go. That website address, again, is money, MONEY, -matters, MATTERS, TV.com.
All right. Welcome back, Josh. Hey, so we were talking about, are we really reaching the point here where, AI is talking to AI, like candidates are using it for applications, employers are using it for screening, applicants are using it to get past the employer screens. Everybody's using it during interviews to answer questions or to solve the tests. So how are we really getting to the point, Josh, where AI is handling the whole process and we humans are just sort of, spectators watching this happen?
I was going to joke that, can you repeat that so that I can put it into Claude and see what it says?
There you go.
I think to an extent, you've hit the nail on the head. I've had cases in which clients have received edits, responses to a proposed change to a contract and put it through AI before sending it to me, and that's fine. But the the things that the AI tool will focus on aren't necessarily what the client needs to look at in real life, because the AI, first, it depends on the prompt. So if the client is a lawyer, they know that there will be certain relationships between the parties, leverage, um, size, experience in the field, what kind of field it is, and clients won't necessarily know how to put those in, what kind of priority they would have. And a lawyer, hopefully someone like me, someone like you, would know what to ask the AI. So when I get stuff from clients, often, and this happened just a few days ago, I'll get something that says, in one case, the client said to the AI, well, look at this from an opposing party's point of view. And the answer was fine, but it didn't reflect what the client would probably see day to day. It reflected what a very large multinational, uh, high leverage type of counterparty would have at their disposal. A lot of money, a lot of ability to push back
Well,
on almost everything.
push back on every little issue
Yeah.
that isn't really an issue. And this is the differentiator, at least in our field, is, we have to have the judgment of knowing, okay, yeah, well, is that potentially a breach of a verbal contract? Maybe. How far is that going to take me? So AI can shoot out, 20 different, oh, this is terrible, this is a big red flag. And in the end, I know what will really work. So we are able to interject our own personal judgment in terms of what will work. But if you're not really working with someone who has the years of experience or personal judgment, what are people doing? They sending back 17-page documents of, kind of red herring legal issues to companies. That's what I think is very problematic. And maybe this will get better over time, but for now, Josh, like what has changed most dramatically just in the past 12 months? Like have you seen? Because we said this is all of 4 years old, right? Generative AI. 4 years old.
Yep.
But what's been the biggest change you've seen just in the past year, maybe?
I think that the tools are getting more sophisticated, and it's a change from having chatbots that individuals can use to actual tools for different types of businesses. So, for example, in the legal field, there are tools made for lawyers. In fact, Claude, Anthropic, which makes Claude, was, I guess, fairly unhappy that there were a lot of companies building tools based on Claude and offering them to lawyers. And they came out with a tool for lawyers. It was Claude for legal. And you can have a plugin in Microsoft Word. And in my case, if a client has given permission for me to use AI, which I make sure that they have, and if they haven't, that's fine. And I will use my traditional tools. But I can use Microsoft Word and ask Claude, hey, what do you think of this paragraph? Here's why I'm asking. How does it compare to what the client wants? And Claude can say, well, I think you should do this, this, this. And I can say, well, I disagree. Or I can actually edit its changes and tweak them.
Yes,
And so
I do that. Yeah.
Really helpful.
Yeah.
But all sorts of businesses have AI tools specific to them, and I think that's kind of how it's changed. And also the quality of the answers has gotten better. Everything still hallucinates, though. That's the problem. That hasn't changed.
Well, yeah, that's what we were talking about, generating the fake cases. I read a statistic that like 88% of employers are using AI right now in terms of the hiring process, if we can kind of focus on the hiring process here. And over 30 million candidates were screened, whether that's individual candidates or applications. I'm not quite sure what that statistic means, but it really does mean, I try to put myself in the shoes of being an applicant for a job and think, what am I doing? I'm filling out paperwork and it goes into some dark hole, and I don't know if I'll ever hear from anyone again. So, when I look at that, there have been many complaints that the AI is biased and that they are still favoring, based on this historical data, Josh, uh, certain zip codes where more affluent people live, or certain uh, schools where, supposedly better than others. So
Yeah.
is there any way, like, if you're a job applicant, is there any workaround for this? Or maybe there just isn't at this time. I'm just not sure.
I, I think it goes back to the basics, and I think the pendulum may be swinging a little bit back to person contact. I think
Yeah.
there's really no substitute for talking to someone who you know who works at the company and saying, "Can you put in a good word for me?" Um,
Oh, good
and
point. Yeah.
yeah, and also one of the things in the Atlantic article was talking about how people have kind of the language used in applications and resumes has kind of become kind of neutral and very much the same as AI processes it. And so you don't have differentiators for the company. And so it's actually harder for the company to figure out who's good, who's interesting, who has unique skills or passions. And so it's kind of a disservice to companies as well. As far as bias, I think it's important to keep checking and making sure that the tool itself isn't exposing your company to charges of bias. You have to see what the actual results on the ground are.
Yeah, and you've probably heard this, because I know I have. Somebody have said, "Hey, I want to put in an application for a job, even if it's not like you're not talking about a six-figure job, just any job. I'm sorry, we can't take your resume or application. You have to apply online." So to me,
Yeah,
that's designed to make everybody go through the same AI screening process. Now, theoretically, that should reduce bias and reduce discrimination, because everybody should be evaluated according to the same criteria and statistics. But as fate would have it, it just doesn't seem to be working that way, does it? So I'm
that's
sort of
a good
hoping,
point.
I'm hoping that employers are just going to get super frustrated with this whole process and say, instead of throwing more AI at AI, why don't we stop the madness and do as you are suggesting? Let people walk into the human resources department and fill out an application, or let them mail something in. And I don't know, I suppose these things there's always the possibility for human error with us, and if there is, well, then go apply online. But I do think it would be better if we gave people other options to sort of you know be in person
Yeah.
with the application processes. It's very hard for people, I think, with this technology, and the level of frustration is extremely high. So are there any innovative ways that you're seeing that companies are using AI, instead of, maybe not so negatively? Are there any innovative ways that you think are good that we should share for people who might be applying for jobs now?
Yeah, there are. I was actually uh, looking last night at a story that got a lot of news. Just the headline part got a lot of news, which is that Firefox, Mozilla, which runs the foundation that is behind the web browser Firefox, they found something like 271 bugs by using what's called Claude Mythos, which is a new model that Anthropic came out with, except that it is supposedly so powerful that it isn't being released to the public. It was open to, I think, 50 organizations, and now it's being opened up to 150. That's in the last few days. But it is not available to the public because, at least what uh, Anthropic and Mozilla were saying, we want to give the good guys a leg up
Ah,
to, in this case, improve their cybersecurity and find bugs. In Mozilla's case, they found, I think, one bug that was 15 years old and another bug that was 20 years old.
oh my God. I
And
I'm so
yeah,
glad you said that. I do want you to continue, but I want to thank you for that comment.
yeah,
Because
so that's one option.
well, when they say, "Oh, it's too powerful to release to the public," I didn't know what that meant. So thank you for explaining that. I think it was very helpful. So
Yeah.
please continue.
Yeah. And I think at some point, everyone will have it's kind of a cat and mouse game. Everyone will have access to the same level of tools. but I appreciate that Anthropic recognized that this is one opportunity to give companies uh, some some chance of finding their own bugs and stamping them out before hackers have yet another way to send you an email, a text that says there's a problem with your account. Please
Uh-huh.
click here to fix it, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you have malware installed in your device. So I think back to what you were saying, Robin, is one one opportunity is cybersecurity. Um, Another is that AI is a tool. It's a tool that people can use in their daily lives to gather more information. There are AI note takers, for example, so you can figure out what happened during a meeting and what what are the takeaways. Um, you can prioritize your emails, but as you and I have discussed, the question is what information from a business is going into the AI, and businesses have to know what information is going out.
Well, Josh, as we think about this, you know, and we have people that are maybe watching and deciding if they have a job in the future. You know, I think about this in terms of there be entry level public relations jobs for people to write internal newsletters, or instead of 4 people on the staff, are you going to have AI doing it and only one? So I don't know. Are you seeing anything? It's not, is it like AI will take my job? Or are you seeing that anywhere that we could share with people, maybe where the new career fields are replacing the older ones?
So I have good news, which is that the doom and gloom scenarios that some of the AI companies predicted, which is AI is going to take many, many, many jobs. I think that hasn't yet come to pass. I don't think it's going to come to pass uh, on the global stage. I do think it's going to change certain jobs. And this is, in my memory, the first time that there's a technology that put professional jobs at risk
Ah, yes,
because being a knowledge worker, uh,
right,
giving
right.
professional advice was something that was seen as safe from technology. Well, now if you have an AI that's able to access almost infinite knowledge and give reasonably good advice, well, do you need as many professionals doing, analysts, for
Right.
example,
Yes,
doing that
data
work?
analyst. Good one to point out to data analysts. How many do you need now if Claude can do it in 3 seconds or less, right?
But the issue is that you also need to provide guidance to the tool. At its heart, AI is a tool, and I think it's an efficiency tool, but it's a tool. And so uh, I remember when clients would come to me and say, uh, I used Google to look for an answer. And I would say, well, I understand, and Google found this statute that is an accurate statute. It doesn't apply in this instance because of XYZ. And then later on, they would use legal service providers like LegalZoom and the like to say, okay, well, I can just apply for a trademark.
Yeah.
And so many people call and say, well, I applied for a trademark and I saved so much money, but then I got pushback from the US Patent and Trademark Office. What do I do now? And often my advice was, you have to start over, unfortunately.
Oh my gosh.
So it it's a tool and it will change certain areas. I mean, Salesforce just came out with something a few days ago saying, I think it was a few days ago, saying that an entire uh, section of their workforce was no longer needed because of AI, because AI could do it better.
Oh
But
my
then
God.
there are other companies that are using AI, I think, as um, a scapegoat for needing to
Cost
lay
cutting.
off employees just for other reasons. It's early days.
Yes, you're so right, Josh. And as we're coming kind of to the end of the show, I I agree that what both Josh and I are seeing here is we hope there will very soon be a return to more human interaction in the job interview and hiring process. Okay, we really think, and we're seeing this in some places, but just really not enough, where it's not just going to be computerized application, but have an in-person interview, do a background, follow up on references. Sometimes I'm seeing this, there are longer probationary periods. Instead of the typical 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days, maybe it's 120 days of a longer probationary period. Or I'm seeing companies say, we want to bring you on as an independent contractor. And they keep you on as a contractor for a while to just assess whether you can work, you are working, or if this is not, if you're not going to be a good fit. So that's what I'm seeing. And Josh, if you could maybe give us a 2-minute or less comment on what you see happening 5 years from now. Do you have your great Karnak, tell me the future hat on right now? Where do you see this all going?
I think there won't be any substitute for person-to-person interaction. I think, when people go to the hospital, you're probably not going to want to be seen by a robot. If your sink is clogged, I don't think AI is going to fix your sink. If you want to do it yourself, can you ask AI? Sure. And if you're handy, maybe you'll fix your sink. Maybe you will flood your kitchen and the plumber will get paid more. So it's like any other resource.
Yes.
But I think that there will be people who learn how to use it efficiently and effectively, and they will have a leg up in the job market. And I think that there will be companies and employees who either don't think it applies to them or don't use it as effectively. And I think that they will be leaving opportunities on the table.
Okay, I think you're spot on as always. The advice we always give to people is you can't be an ostrich. You can't stick your head in the sand and pretend this is not going to affect you, or you can just not play this game. I think everybody watching this needs to learn what you can about AI, learn how to use it as a tool, not to replace you, but to make you better and stay ahead of the curve. Because when you get behind the curve, there's, really no catching up. And I think that's hard for many of us to just keep up with technology, but you have to. It's just no option on it. And I will remind you, Josh, that on Star Trek, the doc did a lot of AI sort of diagnosing. So we'll have to see where that goes. I, for one, I'm kind of holding my breath, but I'm not going to hold my breath too long because our show goes on hiatus now and we will return in the fall. So thank you all for watching. Josh, thank you so much for all your contributions. They are greatly appreciated. And
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. We'll have you next time, next year anyway, I certainly hope. So thank you, and we will see you in the fall.